Okay, so today we're going deep on something pretty interesting.
Definitely.
India's relationship with ASEAN,
Yeah.
which maybe not everyone's super familiar with ASEAN, but
Right.
basically it's a group of 10 Southeast Asian nations, and they kind of work together on political and economic stuff.
Yeah, a major force in the region.
Definitely. And looking at India's relationship with ASEAN,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of a puzzle because we've got history.
Yeah.
We've got current partnerships.
Yeah.
We've got the future challenges.
Okay.
So it's kind of a fascinating picture that emerges when you start to put it all together.
It is. And what really jumps out is that the relationship goes way back, like way back centuries.
Oh, yeah.
Even before colonial times, you had all this trade and cultural exchange going on between India and Southeast Asia.
Wow. So like ancient connections.
Yeah, ancient links.
Yeah.
You think about the spice trade, the spread of Buddhism.
Right.
There's this shared heritage that a lot of people don't even realize.
That's fascinating.
Huh.
I mean, and speaking of shared history, our sources also talk about, the anti-colonial struggles.
Right.
Like India and many ASEAN nations, they kind of went through similar experiences there.
Absolute. That shared experience of fighting for independence, it definitely created a bond.
Like a point of connection that maybe isn't that obvious right off the bat.
Yeah, you don't always think about it, but it's there.
So how did all that, like the ancient history plus the shared anti-colonial stuff, like how did that shape the relationship as we got into like the more modern era?
Well, it's interesting because things got a little complicated during the Cold War.
Oh, how so?
Well, you see, India chose this policy of non-alignment.
Right.
They didn't want to side with the U.S. or the Soviet Union.
They wanted to kind of stay neutral.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas many ASEAN countries at that time leaned more towards the West.
Interesting.
So that difference in political stance created some distance.
Like kind of a you do you, I'll do me situation.
Yeah, pretty much. But then the 1990s rolled around. And both India and ASEAN really started opening up their economies.
Right.
And that's when things really started to warm up again.
So like a fresh start.
In a way, yeah.
So that kind of brings us to today, right, where they have this comprehensive strategic partnership,
Exactly.
which I think became official in 2022.
Yeah.
But what does that really mean? Like, is that like best friend level, or is it more like we respect each other from afar?
No, it's definitely more than just a handshake.
Okay.
This comprehensive strategic partnership means they're committed to working together on a whole range of issues.
So like what kind of issues?
Well, maritime security is a big one.
In the Indo-Pacific.
Yes, especially in the Indo-Pacific. I mean, that region has seen increasing tensions,
Right.
especially with China.
Exactly. China's growing presence is definitely a factor, and both India and ASEAN want to keep things stable there.
Makes sense. Nobody wants conflict in such a vital, economic and strategic waterway.
Right.
So how are they actually working together on maritime security?
Well, you've got joint naval exercises.
Collaborations on combating piracy,
Right.
and a real push for information sharing.
That makes sense.
And India even has this doctrine called SAGAR,
SAG.
which stands for Security and Growth for All in the Region.
I see.
It basically emphasizes a cooperative approach to security.
Cooperation, not confrontation.
Exactly.
Now we got to talk about the economic side of things.
Of course.
Because, I mean, ASEAN is India's fourth largest trading partner.
That's right. A huge economic relationship.
It's massive, but our sources suggest it's not all smooth sailing on that front.
Well, one of the big challenges is the trade deficit.
Oh, okay.
India imports a lot more from ASEAN than it exports.
So they're buying more than they're selling?
Right. And the trade is also very concentrated in certain sectors.
Like what?
Well, India imports a lot of electronics machinery, crude oil from ASEAN,
Okay.
but their exports are more focused on things like refined petroleum products, chemicals, some agricultural goods. So
Excellent.
it's not the most balanced trade relationship.
Right, so finding that balance is key.
Yeah, they're definitely working on it, trying to diversify trade.
And I imagine that's where it gets tricky.
You get it, reworking trade deals to benefit both sides.
Right.
It's a slow process.
Now, trade isn't the only economic game in town, right?
No, definitely not.
There's also all this talk about these big infrastructure projects,
Yeah, some really ambitious ones.
like the India-Myanmar-Thailand Trilateral Highway.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, just the name sounds like an adventure.
Right. Imagine a highway connecting India directly to mainland Southeast Asia.
That would be incredible.
The potential for trade and tourism is huge.
Huge.
But it's a massive undertaking, and there have been a lot of delays.
Like what kind of delays?
Well, everything from political instability in Myanmar
Right.
to funding issues, logistical challenges.
So easier said than done.
Yeah, even with the best intentions.
Are there any other projects like that in the works?
Well, there's the Caledon Multimodal Transit Transport Project.
Okay.
This one aims to connect India's northeastern states to the Bay of Bengal through Myanmar.
So again, boosting connectivity.
Exactly, and it could really help develop India's northeast region.
I see.
But again, it's facing its own set of challenges.
Right. So lots of potential, but the reality on the ground is complicated.
It always is.
And we can't talk about India and ASEAN without talking about China.
The elephant in the room.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, ASEAN has really deep economic ties with China,
Oh, absolutely.
and that has to complicate things with India.
It does. It's a balancing act for ASEAN.
They're trying to play both sides.
In a way, yeah, they want to maintain strong ties with both these Asian giants.
Right. And speaking of tricky situations, there's also the Myanmar crisis.
Another layer of complexity.
How does that play into things?
Well, the military coup in Myanmar has been a real challenge for ASEAN.
Right.
And India, which shares a border with Myanmar, has taken a slightly different approach to the crisis than some ASEAN members,
Okay.
and that's caused some friction.
So another point of tension.
Yeah.
So we've got all this potential for partnership, but also some serious obstacles.
Definitely.
What does the future hold? Like, is there a path forward for India and ASEAN?
I think there is, but they need to tackle these challenges head on.
What do you mean?
Well, first, those big infrastructure projects.
Like the highway?
Yeah, the highway, the Caledon project, they need to get those moving, attract investment.
Okay.
And then there's a trade imbalance.
Right.
They need to find ways to make trade more mutually beneficial.
So both sides win.
Exactly.
And what about security, especially with China's influence growing?
Well, stepping up maritime and defense cooperation is going to be key.
What does that look like?
More joint exercises, more intelligence sharing, maybe even more collaborations on defense technology, like that BrahMos missile deal between India and the Philippines.
Right. I remember reading about that.
That was a big deal.
And our sources also talked about the potential for collaboration in tech and green energy.
Huge potential there.
It seems like both India and ASEAN have really ambitious goals in those areas.
They do think AI, semiconductors, renewable energy,
Right.
even electric vehicle battery tech.
Wow.
There's so much they could do together.
So much potential. But as we've seen, potential doesn't always equal reality.
Sure enough.
So will they actually do it?
Yeah.
Will India and ASEAN put in the work to make this partnership flourish?
That's the million-dollar question.
It is, isn't it?
And the answer is going to shape the future of the region.
And maybe even the world.
Possibly.
Well, there you have it. We've gone through centuries of history.
A lot of history.
We've looked at the economic ties, the security challenges.
It's a complex relationship.
It is so much to think about.
Definitely.
But here's something to ponder as India and ASEAN chart their course forward.
Yeah,
How do you think your relationship is going to shape the world?
that's a good question.
And how might it impact your own life? Even if you're continents away.
It's all connected.
It really is the future is being written right now.
And it's a fascinating story to watch unfold.
Definitely. Thanks for breaking it all down for us.
Of course, anytime.
We'll see you next time for another deep dive.
Sounds good.